Ethan Cross had spent 3 years studying interspecies physiology without ever feeling particularly unprofessional about it. His work as a xenobiology researcher meant observing alien anatomies, cataloging differences, understanding how various species' bodies functioned. It was science, clinical, professional, until the day he made the catastrophic mistake of staring at Lyra. It happened in the communal gym area of Orbital Research Platform Meridian. Ethan had gone to use the equipment during off-peak hours, preferring solitude for his workouts. He was halfway through his routine when she arrived. Lyra, Valerian astrophysicist from the upper research levels. He'd seen her around the station for months. Tall, elegant, moving with the kind of grace that his researcher brain cataloged as exceptional kinesthetic awareness, while his definitely not researcher brain just appreciated on a much more basic level. She was wearing standard gym attire, and Ethan made the mistake of looking, not glancing, looking, staring really, though he didn't realize he was doing it until it was far too late to pretend otherwise. Valerians were striking by any species standards. Lyra was particularly striking, nearly 6.5 feet tall, her physiology showing the dense musculature of beings evolved on high-gravity worlds. Her skin shifted through subtle colors as she moved, thermoregulation combined with emotional expression. His professional knowledge supplied helpfully, while his unprofessional attention just noted that the effect was mesmerizing. And her form, the way she moved through exercise routines with fluid precision, the visible strength in her movements, controlled power that made the equipment look inadequate for her capabilities. Ethan was staring. He realized he was staring when she stopped mid-exercise and turned to look directly at him. Her long ears, those distinctive Valerian features that were as expressive as human faces, angled forward. Awareness, attention. And unless his cultural database was completely wrong, amusement. Enjoying the view, Lyra asked, her voice carrying harmonics that made his translator struggle slightly. Ethan's face went nuclear. I mean yes, no. I was just, he gestured vaguely, trying to indicate something scientific and professional and failing completely. Observing, for research purposes, professionally. For research. She repeated it like she was tasting the words, her ears angling in ways that definitely indicated amusement. You were researching me, while I exercise. Is that standard human scientific methodology? I'm so sorry. That was completely inappropriate. I shouldn't have been staring. Ethan wanted the station's emergency airlocks to spontaneously open and save him from this conversation. I'll go. Again, I'm very sorry. Don't apologize. Lyra moved closer, and Ethan was suddenly very aware that she was taller than him, her presence overwhelming in ways that had nothing to do with height. You like what you see, don't you? The question was direct, teasing, and absolutely mortifying. Ethan's brain provided no useful response. His mouth made sounds that might technically be words. That is, biologically speaking, Valerian physiology is fascinating from a research perspective. I'm not asking biologically. She tilted her head, studying him with intensity that made him feel like a specimen. I'm asking personally. You were staring at my body, not at a research subject's anatomy. At me. Did you find what you were looking at attractive? Ethan made the decision to die of embarrassment right there. Yes, I find you, very attractive, which is unprofessional and inappropriate, and I'm genuinely sorry for making you uncomfortable with my staring. Who said I'm uncomfortable? Lyra's expression shifted to something that might be a smile. The Valerian version involved subtle changes around her eyes and a particular ear angle. You're attracted to me. That's flattering, not offensive. Why apologize for finding someone attractive? Because staring at you without your consent is rude and objectifying and honest. She interrupted gently. You looked because you were attracted. That's normal biological response across most species. You're apologizing because you have social awareness and understand your behavior could be unwelcome. That's admirable, but don't apologize for the attraction itself. Attraction is natural response to encountering someone you find appealing. She studied him with that same intense focus. I'm curious, what specifically did you find attractive? Valerian physiology is quite different from human. Our species have different aesthetic standards. What appealed to you? Ethan's brain was short-circuiting, trying to answer honestly without being even more inappropriate. Everything. Your movement patterns are hypnotic, the fluidity and control. The way your skin shifts colors is mesmerizing. Your physical presence is commanding, all of it. You're beautiful in ways that human aesthetic vocabulary doesn't adequately capture. Lyra's ears lifted, pleasure, maybe approval. That's the first genuinely interesting thing a human has said to me since I arrived on this station. Most try very hard to be professionally neutral, pretending they don't notice physical differences between species. You're honest about noticing. I appreciate honesty. Even when the honesty is, I was staring at you like an idiot. Especially then. Pretending attraction doesn't exist is more insulting than acknowledging it. She glanced at the chronometer on the wall. I should finish my workout. But Ethan Cross, yes, I know your name. I looked it up after noticing you noticing me. Perhaps we should continue this conversation later, when you're less mortified and I'm less sweaty. You want to continue this conversation. Ethan couldn't process this turn of events. I find you interesting. You're honest despite being embarrassed. You try to be respectful even while being helplessly attracted. That combination is rare. Her ears angled forward, definite interest now. Meet me for dinner. Station commissary, 1900 hours. We can discuss what happens when honest attraction confronts professional boundaries and cross-species complications. She returned to her workout before Ethan could formulate a response, leaving him standing in the gym area, processing the impossible reality that his catastrophic staring had just been turned into a dinner invitation by the woman who'd caught him doing it. His mortification was now competing with excitement, confusion, and the growing realization that Lyra had said she'd noticed him noticing her, which implied she'd been paying attention to him before today's embarrassing incident. Ethan returned to his quarters in a daze, his workout completely forgotten, his mind racing through the interaction and trying to determine if he'd just been invited on a date or if he was catastrophically misreading Valerian's social cues. He had 6 hours until dinner to figure it out, and possibly to die of embarrassment several more times while replaying the moment she'd asked if he liked what he saw, and he'd essentially admitted to staring at her like he'd never seen an attractive being before. Which, to be fair, was pretty accurate. He'd never seen anyone quite like Lyra, and now, apparently, he was having dinner with her to discuss the implications of that fact. His researcher brain noted this was unprecedented opportunity to study cross-species social dynamics. His non-researcher brain just noted that he was terrified and excited in equal measure, and that Lyra's directness was both intimidating and incredibly attractive. He spent the intervening hours alternating between researching Valerian courtship customs and trying not to panic. The research was not particularly helpful. Valerian culture was notably private about personal relationships, and human Valerian romantic interactions had approximately 0 documented precedents to reference. So Ethan did what he always did when science failed him. He decided to be honest, hope for the best, and try not to stare too obviously during dinner. Though given how this all started, the not staring part was probably already a lost cause. Ethan arrived at the commissary at 1850 hours, unnecessarily early, but he was too anxious to wait in his quarters any longer. He found a table with reasonable privacy, positioned himself where he could watch the entrance without being obvious about it, and spent 10 minutes trying to look casual while internally panicking. Lyra arrived at exactly 1900 hours, wearing casual attire that somehow still looked elegant. Her ears were angled in ways Ethan's frantic cultural research suggested meant pleased anticipation. She spotted him immediately and moved toward his table with that same fluid grace that had gotten him into this situation in the first place. "You're early," she observed, settling into the chair across from him with careful precision. Anxious, completely terrified, Ethan admitted. I've spent the last 6 hours researching Valerian social customs and trying to determine if I completely misunderstood this invitation. What did your research tell you? That Valerian culture is extremely private about personal relationships, and that human Valerian courtship has basically no documented precedents. Accurate, Lyra's expression shifted to amusement. Did you also discover that your search history is visible in the station's anthropology database? Because I'm affiliated with that department. I saw every panicked query you made about Valerian dating customs. Ethan considered whether the station had any conveniently located escape pods. That's deeply mortifying. I was trying to understand whether dinner meant what I hoped it meant, or if I was catastrophically misreading cultural signals. Dinner means I'm interested in getting to know you better, possibly romantically, if we're compatible. Definitely intellectually, because you're the first human on this station who's been honest about finding Valerians physically attractive rather than pretending to be species blind. She stood. We should get food before continuing this conversation. I'm hungry, and this discussion will be easier if we're both eating. They navigated the commissary's multi-species food options, human selections for Ethan, Valerian cuisine for Lyra, that involved things that looked like they might still be partially alive. They returned to their table, and Lyra dove into her meal with the kind of efficiency that suggested Valerians didn't view eating as primarily social activity. So, she said between bites, your research would have told you that Valerian courtship values honesty above all else. Pretending attraction doesn't exist is considered insulting in our culture. Acknowledging it openly is respectful and expected. So me staring at you and then admitting I found you attractive was good, by Valerian standards. Better than the alternative. Most humans I've encountered are so careful to be politically correct that they're fundamentally dishonest. They pretend not to notice physical differences between species, claim they're species blind, as if attraction is purely intellectual and physical appearance is irrelevant. Her ears flattened slightly, frustration. It's patronizing. Bodies matter, physical attraction exists. Pretending otherwise doesn't make you enlightened, it makes you dishonest. I was definitely not pretending to be unattracted to you. No, you were staring like you'd forgotten how to function. It was flattering. She smiled, that Valerian expression that was different from human smiles but clearly positive. Now tell me about your work. Xenobiology research. Does that mean you spend your time cataloging alien anatomies professionally? Essentially, I study physiological adaptations across species, how different evolutionary pressures produce different biological solutions. Ethan relaxed slightly as conversation shifted to professional territory. Valerians, for example, evolved on a high-gravity world. Your musculature is denser than human. Your skeletal structure is reinforced. The color shifts in your skin are thermoregulation combined with emotional expression. Your ears are incredibly sophisticated sensory organs that also serve communication functions. You've studied my species thoroughly. It's my job. Also, I find Valerian biology genuinely fascinating. The efficiency of your physiological systems is remarkable from an evolutionary perspective. Is that what you were thinking when you were staring at me in the gym? Remarkable evolutionary efficiency. Her tone was teasing. No, I was thinking you were beautiful and I couldn't look away, and I needed to stop staring before you noticed because I was being completely inappropriate. Ethan decided continuing honesty was the only viable strategy. The scientific appreciation came later when I was trying to justify the staring to myself. Lyra laughed. The sound carried harmonics that resonated pleasantly in ways his translator couldn't quite capture. At least you're honest now. What else were you thinking? I'm curious about human attraction responses to non-human species. Ethan debated deflecting, then remembered she valued honesty. I was thinking your movement patterns were hypnotic, that the way your skin shifts colors was mesmerizing, that your physical presence was overwhelming in the best possible way. And I was thinking, I needed to stop staring immediately before you noticed because I was being a creep. And yet I did notice, and here we are having dinner. She leaned forward slightly. Ethan, I'm going to be direct because Valerian culture values clarity over subtlety. I'm attracted to you. Your honesty, your obvious intelligence, the way you tried to be respectful even while being helplessly attracted. I invited you to dinner to explore whether that attraction is mutual and whether we're compatible enough to pursue further. Ethan's brain struggled to process. You're attracted to me, but I'm human. We're completely different species with incompatible biology, and different doesn't mean incompatible, and attraction isn't purely biological. Her ears angled forward, interest, intent. I find your intellect attractive, your honesty attractive, your obvious discomfort with your own attraction attractive because it demonstrates self-awareness. Yes, we're different species. That's interesting, not disqualifying. I've studied interspecies relationships academically, but I've never actually. Ethan stopped, trying to organize his thoughts. Are we talking about pursuing a relationship, romantic relationship, across species boundaries? That's what I'm proposing we explore, yes, with clear communication and realistic expectations about complications. She took another bite of her food. If you're interested. I'm interested. Definitely interested. Also terrified that I'll mess this up somehow because I have no idea what I'm doing. Neither do I. There's no established protocol for human Valerian courtship. We'll figure it out together. Her expression was warm, encouraging. That's part of what makes this interesting. We're creating something new rather than following predetermined patterns. They talked for 2 more hours, long after finishing their meals. About their work, their interests, their backgrounds. Ethan learned that Lyra had been on the station for 8 months, that she'd noticed him in the labs before but hadn't approached because humans seemed uncomfortable around Valerians, that she valued directness and found most human social conventions confusing and inefficient. Lyra learned that Ethan had grown up on colony worlds, that he'd chosen xenobiology specifically because he was fascinated by diversity rather than threatened by it, that he tended to overthink social interactions and apologize excessively when he thought he'd made mistakes. This was good, Lyra said as they finally prepared to leave. We should do it again. Continue exploring whether compatibility matches attraction. I'd like that very much. Ethan stood, then hesitated. Can I ask, why did you approach me today in the gym? You could have just ignored my staring. Because ignoring attraction is wasteful. You were clearly interested. I was interested in return. Pretending neither was true would have been inefficient and dishonest. Her ears angled forward. Life is short, even for long-lived species. When you encounter someone intriguing, you pursue that intrigue. You intrigued me, Ethan Cross. You still do. You intrigue me too, obviously, given the staring. I caught you staring and you admitted attraction honestly. That took courage. I value courage. She moved closer. Same time tomorrow, we can continue this exploration. Tomorrow, yes. I'll try not to stare too obviously. You can stare, I don't mind. Her smile was warm, genuine. As long as you're honest about why you're staring, it's not inappropriate. It's communication. She left, and Ethan stood in the commissary processing what just happened. He'd been caught staring, confronted about it, admitted his attraction, and somehow that had turned into the beginning of something that might be a relationship with the most fascinating being he'd ever encountered. His researcher brain noted this was unprecedented data about cross-species social dynamics. His non-researcher brain just noted that he was already looking forward to tomorrow, with an intensity that suggested this was going to be significantly more than academic interest. He'd started the day expecting routine workout. He was ending it having dinner plans with a Valerian astrophysicist who'd caught him staring and turned his embarrassment into possibility. Sometimes, Ethan reflected, being caught doing something inappropriate was the best thing that could happen. Daily dinners became routine over the following weeks. Ethan and Lyra met in the commissary, talked for hours, navigated the complicated territory of cross-species attraction with more honesty than grace. They were figuring it out together: what worked, what didn't, what required accommodation, and what transcended species differences entirely. "This is unusual," Lyra observed during one dinner. "Human-Valerian romantic relationships are extremely rare. Not forbidden, just uncommon. Most beings stick to their own species for partnerships. We're navigating without cultural roadmap. Does that bother you, the lack of precedent?" "No, I find it interesting. We're creating our own path rather than following established patterns." Her ears angled in determination. "But it does mean we need exceptionally clear communication. What do you want from this, Ethan? Friendship, romance, something else entirely?" Ethan appreciated her directness even as it made his heart race. "I want to keep getting to know you. I'm attracted to you intellectually and physically. I'd like to explore whether this could be a romantic relationship, understanding there are significant complications with cross-species dynamics that we'll need to navigate carefully. Complications like biological incompatibility for certain activities, cultural differences in how we express affection or interpret behavior. The fact that I still sometimes catch myself staring at you and have to remind myself that even though you said it's acceptable, I should probably maintain some social awareness. It's only inappropriate if I'm not inviting the attention." Lyra moved her chair closer to his. "I don't mind you looking at me, Ethan. I find your attraction flattering, and I'm looking at you too, appreciating what I see. Fair exchange of attention. You're attracted to me." He still found this improbable. "I'm trying to understand why. I'm average human in every measurable way. You're extraordinary by any species standards. You're honest when most beings are performatively neutral. You're intelligent without being condescending about it. You're attracted to me and admit it rather than pretending to be above physical responses." Her hand covered his, her fingers longer, cooler, the touch sending electricity through his nervous system. "You see me, Ethan. Not just Valerian astrophysicist, me. That's rare and valuable. I do see you. Can't seem to stop seeing you, honestly. You're kind of all I think about lately." "Good, you're all I think about too." She squeezed his hand gently. "We should discuss physical affection. What's comfortable for you? What would you like to explore? Valerian and human standards are different." They talked about boundaries and desires with the kind of clinical honesty that somehow made it easier. Ethan learned that Valerians were more physically tactile in casual settings than humans. That touch was fundamental to their communication. Lyra learned that humans were more verbally expressive, that saying things explicitly mattered more than demonstrating through action. They started spending more time together beyond dinners. Study sessions where they worked in comfortable silence. Ethan's xenobiology research complementing Lyra's astrophysics calculations. Walks through the observation deck where they watched stars wheel past and talked about everything from stellar formation to childhood memories to what they wanted from their futures. And they explored physical affection carefully, hand-holding that required accommodation for their size differences, proximity that was charged with mutual attraction. They were both acknowledging openly, gentle touches that were learning each other's boundaries and preferences. The station noticed. Gossip circulated about the xenobiologist and the astrophysicist, the human and the Valerian, the unusual pairing that was becoming obviously romantic. Reactions varied from supportive to confused to actively judgmental. "My supervisor asked if our relationship creates conflict of interest," Ethan mentioned during one of their walks. "Since you're affiliated with the anthropology department and I'm in xenobiology, there's apparently concern about scientific objectivity." "What did you tell them?" "That we're not collaborating on research projects, and our personal relationship doesn't impact our professional work. Also that it's none of their business as long as we're not violating station protocols." He paused. Was that appropriate response? Perfect response. Valerian culture would consider inquiries about personal relationships deeply invasive unless they directly impact professional duties. "You handled it exactly right." Her ears lifted with approval. I'm proud of you for setting that boundary. But not everyone was easily dismissed. Ethan overheard colleagues questioning whether he was fetishizing Valerians, whether his attraction was based on exoticizing difference rather than genuine connection. Lyra dealt with Valerian acquaintances suggesting she was lowering herself by pursuing a human, that cross-species relationships were novelty rather than substance. Does it bother you? Ethan asked after a particularly harsh comment from his colleague about species-inappropriate attraction. People judging us. Yes and no. Lyra considered the question seriously. Yes, because constant judgment is exhausting. No, because their opinions don't change what we have. You're attracted to me. I'm attracted to you. That's real regardless of whether others approve. What if they're right, though? What if my attraction is based on you being Valerian rather than you being you? What if I'm unconsciously exoticizing you? Are you? She stopped walking to face him directly. When you look at me, are you thinking attractive Valerian or attractive person who happens to be Valerian? The second one. Always the second one. You're Lyra. Your species is part of who you are, but it's not why I'm attracted to you. I'm attracted because you're brilliant and honest and you challenge my thinking and you caught me staring and turned it into conversation instead of complaint. Because you make me laugh and you value directness and you're kind even when you don't have to be. Then others' opinions are irrelevant. Their inability to understand that distinction is their limitation, not our problem. She took his hand, intertwining their fingers despite the size difference. I'm attracted to you because you're you, Ethan. Human is part of that, your perspective, your cultural background, your physiological responses. But it's not the entirety of why I care about you. If people can't understand that nuance, that's not our responsibility to fix. They continued, navigating challenges together, learning each other's communication styles. Lyra's preference for directness sometimes felt blunt to Ethan's more indirect human sensibilities, while his tendency to soften statements sometimes frustrated her need for clarity. Their different comfortable temperature ranges meant compromising on environmental settings. Their strength difference meant Lyra had to be constantly careful during physical contact, not to accidentally hurt him. But they made it work through patience, communication, and genuine affection that grew deeper the more they learned about each other. I love you, Ethan said one evening, the words surprising him as they emerged. They were in Lyra's quarters, comfortable in shared silence while working on separate projects. The words just came out, honest and unplanned. Lyra's ears shot straight up, surprise, then obvious joy. You love me. Yes. I probably should have planned how to say that better, but yes. I love you. You're the most remarkable person I've ever known, and being with you makes me happier than I knew was possible. I love you too. Her voice carried harmonics of deep emotion. I've been wanting to say it, but I wasn't certain about appropriate timing in human courtship. Valerian culture is more direct. We say things when we feel them. But I know humans have complex protocols about emotional declarations. Forget protocols. Say what you feel when you feel it. That's what I want from you, honesty always. Then I love you completely. You're the first being I've met who sees me as person rather than just Valerian scientist, who values honesty over politeness, who admits attraction instead of pretending to be above physical response. I love you, Ethan Cross. They held each other, their size difference requiring creative positioning but not preventing intimacy. And Ethan reflected that all of this extraordinary connection, this deepening love, had started because he'd been caught staring and had the conversation that followed been honest rather than deflecting. Sometimes vulnerability led to the best things. Sometimes being caught in a moment of honest attraction was exactly what needed to happen. 6 months into their relationship, Ethan and Lyra had settled into comfortable partnership that felt both natural and extraordinary. They'd moved into shared quarters, space modified to accommodate both their needs, with temperature zones and furniture that adjusted for their different sizes. But comfort didn't mean absence of challenges. Cross-species relationships carried complications that required constant navigation. I need to ask something, Lyra said one evening, her ears angled in ways Ethan had learned meant she was processing difficult emotions. And I need you to be completely honest, even if honesty is uncomfortable. Always honest with you, what's wrong? Do you love me, or are you in love with the idea of being with a Valerian? Her ears flattened, vulnerability in the question. I need to know if this is real, or if I'm a novelty that will become ordinary once the fascination with difference fades. Ethan set aside the data pad he'd been reading, giving her his full attention. I love you, you specifically. Lyra, who gets unreasonably excited about star formation patterns and makes terrible puns in 3 languages, and caught me staring that day, and turned my embarrassment into the best conversation of my life. Yes, you being Valerian is part of who you are, your culture, your physiology, your perspective shaped by your background. But I'm not with you because you're Valerian. I'm with you because you're you. How can you be certain? We're so different. How do you know the attraction isn't just fascination with difference? Because fascination fades. What I feel for you hasn't faded, it's grown stronger. Ethan moved closer, taking her hands. I know you better now than I did 6 months ago. I've seen you frustrated with research problems, exhausted after long shifts, dealing with prejudice from people who think our relationship is inappropriate. And I love you more now, not less. More because of familiarity, not despite it. That's how I know it's real. You're certain. Her voice was small in a way that didn't match her physical presence. Completely certain. You're not novelty to me. You're home. The person I want to tell about my day, the one I think about when I'm supposed to be concentrating on work, the one I choose every single day. That's love, Lyra. Not fascination or fetish or exoticization. Love. Her ears lifted, hope, joy, relief flooding her expression. I love you too. I was afraid to ask because I worried you'd think I was insecure or needy. But I needed to know that this is real for you the way it's real for me. It's real, possibly the most real thing in my life. He pulled her closer. We should make this official. Both Earth and Valerian legal systems recognize cross-species partnerships now. We could formalize our bond. Are you asking me to marry you, or the Valerian equivalent? Both, if that's possible. I want legal recognition that we're not a temporary experiment or an interspecies novelty. I want everyone to know you're my partner and I'm yours, permanently. His expression was fierce with certainty. I want formal acknowledgement that love transcends species boundaries, and that our relationship that started with embarrassing staring is the real thing. You're never going to let me forget that you were staring, are you? Never. Its origin story. You caught me looking because I couldn't help myself. You turned my mortification into conversation, turned honest attraction into connection. She smiled. Best staring in the history of interspecies relations. They began the process of formalizing their bond through legal channels on both sides. Earth required documentation proving relationship legitimacy. Valerian authorities needed verification that their partnership met cultural standards despite species differences. The station administration had to approve residential arrangements and update personnel records. The ceremony blended traditions from both cultures, Valerian declarations of intent spoken with formal precision, human exchange of vows expressing personal commitment. They held it in the observation deck with view of stars as witness, attended by colleagues who'd become friends and family who traveled across systems to be present. I caught you staring, Lyra said during her vows, her voice carrying harmonics that translated as deep emotion. You were mortified, honest, and ultimately brave enough to admit attraction you thought was inappropriate. That honesty is foundation of everything we've built. You don't hide what you feel. You acknowledge it, examine it, choose it consciously. You chose me. Every day you choose me. I choose you back every day forever. I was staring because you're extraordinary, Ethan responded, his voice thick with emotion. Because you took my breath away and I couldn't look away. I'm still staring, but now with permission. Now with love. Now with commitment to keep seeing you, knowing you, choosing you for the rest of my life. You're the best thing that ever happened to my wandering gaze. Years passed. They built life together that accommodated both their needs and celebrated their differences. Their careers flourished with mutual support, Ethan's research benefiting from Lyra's astrophysics expertise, her work informed by his xenobiology insights. They published collaborative papers that pushed boundaries of interspecies cooperation. Other human-Valerian relationships formed on the station, inspired by their visible success. The interspecies romantic partnership rate increased. What had been unusual became accepted. What had been questioned became celebrated. "We accidentally pioneered something," Ethan observed one evening as they reviewed station demographics showing increased cross-species partnerships. "We proved that honesty about attraction matters more than species compatibility metrics," Lyra corrected. "That acknowledging physical responses is healthier than pretending to be above them. That love is active choice, not just biological compatibility." She took his hand, their fingers intertwining with practiced ease. "Thank you for staring at me that day, for being honest about it when you could have deflected. Thank you for catching me and asking if I liked what I saw instead of being offended. Thank you for valuing honesty over comfort. Thank you for turning my embarrassment into the beginning of everything." He kissed her hand. "Best embarrassment of my life. Best catch of mine." Her ears angled forward with pure contentment. "I love you, Ethan Cross, my honest starer, my permanent choice, my human who sees me. I love you, Lyra, my beautiful catch. My extraordinary partner who saw past my embarrassment to the genuine attraction underneath and had courage to explore it." They sat together in their shared home, surrounded by the life they'd built from a moment of vulnerability. Him staring because he couldn't help himself, her catching him and choosing conversation over complaint, both of them deciding honesty mattered more than comfort. Sometimes the best relationships start with embarrassing moments handled honestly. Sometimes being caught in vulnerability becomes the foundation for genuine connection. Sometimes love begins with staring, confrontation, and the courage to acknowledge attraction rather than hide behind comfortable neutrality. Ethan had stared. Lyra had caught him. Together, they'd built something that proved love transcends species boundaries when both people choose honesty, communication, and the active decision to keep choosing each other despite every complication. They'd started with staring and a question. "You like what you see, don't you?" The answer had been yes, still was yes, would always be yes, and everything beautiful in their lives had grown from that single moment of honest acknowledgement, vulnerability accepted rather than rejected, attraction explored rather than suppressed. Sometimes the best things in life start with being caught staring and having the courage to admit